I find the topic of the time of Oswald's arrest at the Texas Theater to be very complex but very important. It's important for me because this motorcycle officer here, I think, is the same motorcycle officer we can see at Parkland Hospital. And I think that he is James H. Taylor, and that he was deeply involved in the assassination activities of the day. So I find it very important whether or not Oswald's time of arrest allows for this possibility. I think it's the same officer, so naturally I am inclined to believe the time of arrest indicated by the evidence, which allows him to be the same officer. We have an earlier time of arrest indicated by some of the evidence, and some of the evidence indicates a later time of arrest. If it's the earlier time of arrest, then it could be the same officer. If it's the later time of arrest, then it could not be the same officer. I think this is not an accident. I think that the police officers involved actually in real time faked the time of Oswald's arrest. I think they arrested him earlier, and then on the radio were pretending that they arrested him later. I don't think all of the police officers involved understood this, but I think there were some key players who faked this in real time in the radio traffic. So starting with the evidence that I favor that supports the early time, we have George Applin. He was watching the movie at the Texas Theater, and this is from his FBI report, or the FBI report of an interview with him. And according to what he says, and according to the program times of the movie, what he says indicates an arrest time of about 1:30. Now, Applin did also make out an affidavit in which he contradicts this. What he says in the affidavit supports the later time, but what he says in the FBI report supports the earlier time of about 1:30, so that's what I'm going with here. Then there's the Warner transcript of the Dallas police radio traffic. Special Agent Warner of the FBI was the first person I know of to make a transcript of the radio recording. And at 1:37, after the time announcement that he heard on the tape, he heard this statement: 19, tell 223 to get off the air, we've already got him. So this indicates a time of arrest before 1:37, since at 1:37 this dispatcher already knows that the suspect has been arrested. I'm going to get back to this because this is a little complex in the context of the radio traffic. But for now, the Warner transcript indicates a time of before 1:37. And the official time on the arrest report says 1:40 p.m. There are other documents which also say 1:40 p.m. They are probably based upon the arrest report, I would imagine. So the official document, it's not the official story. There's a difference here. The official story does not agree with the official arrest report. But the official arrest report says 1:40 p.m. So, and I don't see 1:40 being inconsistent with these other times. I think if it's within 5 minutes, then it's consistent, and that would be an acceptable inaccuracy, acceptable as being honest. So when I consider all of these together, I come up with the conclusion of an arrest time at 1:35. And if that was all the evidence we had, then that would be conclusive. Unless you needed it to be precise, to within a minute or two, that would be conclusive, that we've got an arrest time around 1:35. But the radio traffic indicates an arrest time 17 minutes later. That is not an acceptable inaccuracy. The first mention of a suspect being at the Texas Theater is at 1:46 on the radio. This is more than 10 minutes after my arrest time. And the first report of an actual arrest is at 1:52, 17 minutes after my arrest time. So, to judge by this evidence all by itself, you would have to say Oswald was arrested at 1:52, because you would assume that Sergeant Gerald Hill, there he is again, is calling in when he's in the car, just having left the Texas Theater. So, and there are officer reports. They call them Dear Chief letters, where the officer writes up a report to Chief Curry, giving his account of his actions regarding a particular matter, and all of those support a later time. In fact, some of them have the arrest coming after 2 o'clock. None of them support the earlier time, and all of them support the later time. But they're so inaccurate. I mean, even if you believe 1:52, these guys are off by 10 minutes or more sometimes. So I dismiss them as being irrelevant, unless perhaps they were told to just say things happened later than they did, which I think is probable. So my task here is to demonstrate that the radio traffic is inaccurate and even fraudulent. And the first point I'll make along those lines is this here. This is Sergeant Gerald Hill inside the car after they have just stuffed Oswald there, about to leave the Texas Theater. Gerald Hill is not on the radio. He is on the car phone. This is Captain Westbrook's car, and Captain Westbrook has a car phone. And so, unless you think he's ordering pizza or something, the first report Hill is making of the arrest is made on the car phone, not on the radio. So the report on the radio at 1:52 that they have him under arrest is not his first reporting of the arrest. I think that probably he's on the phone here 17 minutes earlier than he is on the radio. But I can't prove that with this alone. But what this means, at least, is that when we hear him at 1:52 on the radio, or we don't hear him because we don't have the recording, but when he's on the radio at 1:52, according to the transcripts, that's not the first time he's reporting Oswald's arrest. He reported his arrest before that. And now, into the radio traffic and through the looking glass we go. The recording of this time period is unavailable. At least I've been looking for it for years and I haven't been able to find it. Yet I see references to the recording, at least into the 1990s, maybe the 2000s. On John McAdams' website, for example, there are links, which no longer work, to samples of that recording. But the recording apparently is not available to us little folks, so we have to go by the transcripts. And the transcripts are incredibly inadequate for this time period. I wonder why. Now, the first transcript I'm using, the one marked number 1, I got this off the John McAdams page, and you notice the time there is stated at 1:34. Well, after 1:34, not a single time is connected to a single transmission until 1:43. We have 9 minutes of transmissions for which there are no times. They are listed sequentially, presumably, but with no time assigned. And without the recording, you can't tell how much time has passed. So this very critical time, where I'm trying to find out the time of arrest, we don't have any times. So I'm using that recording first, or that transcript first, because it shows the transmissions of 2:23 C.T. Walker. And then I'm using this other transcript. It's one of the ones that was handed to the Warren Commission. It does give a time at 1:40. So this time is not in the number 1 transcript, but it's in the number 3 transcript, so that's why I'm using that portion of the number 3 transcript here, because we at least have a time, even if it's 6 minutes after the last time mentioned. Number 2 there is the Warner transcript, and it mentions, as I read before, this statement, 19 tell 2:23 C.T. Walker to get off the air, we've already got him. That statement appears nowhere else. It's in none of the other transcripts. This was the first transcript made, by FBI agent Warner. I have no doubt that this was on the recording he heard. All of the other transcripts come afterwards. So, without the recording, I have to conclude either that the transcribers that followed Warner decided not to include that in their transcript, or that the recordings they listened to didn't have it on the recording. I think that makes it more important. I don't think it makes it less likely to be true. I think it highlights this statement as being something that was really there that somebody decided shouldn't be there. And the number 4 here comes from the Sheriff's Department transcript of their radio. Number 4, all right, let me take this in sequence, I guess will be better. In transcript number 1, Patrolman C.T. Walker, I don't think he's actually a patrolman, let's not get into that. C.T. Walker leads the charge to the library. Tires squealing, noises, apparently somebody heard the recording, didn't they? And he goes to the library. He's announcing he's at the library, let's go get him. And I take, now that's given as a time at 1:34. You can't tell how much time passes, but the next time you're just down there, he's saying he's going around the back. So I don't know where he was when he started out, but the implication is that some time has passed between his first message there and his next one, because before his tires are squealing and he's going to the library, and then his next message he's at the library. So at least some time has passed, but we don't know how much because we can't tell. I think number 2 comes very shortly after this. I think this is a reference to C.T. Walker leading the charge to the library, where the dispatcher, there's more than one, this dispatcher says 19, tell 223 to get off the air, we've already got him. This makes most sense following C.T. Walker making all this noise about the library. Now C.T. Walker doesn't come on again on the radio, you can see in 3, he doesn't come on again until 1:40. There's no other transmissions from him between what we see supposedly at 1:34 and at 1:40. So it looks to me like number 2 has to be referring to his 1:34 transmissions, even if they were not at 1:34. Probably his last one there is at 1:37 or 1:36, and the dispatcher on channel 2 is responding to that. He's saying, tell him to get off the radio, we've already got him. He means, don't bother with this library crap, he's already been arrested. That's the way I interpret that. But if you want it to mean something else, there is evidence to suggest that the dispatcher was really responding to the fact that somebody was arrested at the library. And therefore, he mistakenly thought the suspect was arrested. You can think that if you want to, but the trouble with that is that it doesn't make any sense for him to say to get 223 off the air, because 223 doesn't say anything again after that. So the only way the dialogue or the traffic makes sense is if the dispatcher is responding to Walker before anyone has been arrested at the library. And if that's the case, he's not referring to the guy arrested at the library. He's referring to the guy that Sergeant Hill called in and said they had arrested at the Texas Theater at 1:37, or 1:35 is the time I gave that. That fits my time of 1:35 or so, because it comes 2 minutes after that. So I think the dispatcher, as reflected in transcript 2, has been told by Gerald Hill, or through Gerald Hill, that they arrested the suspect already. And then Walker comes on pretending that they're going after the suspect to the library, and this dispatcher doesn't know that it's a ruse, and he tells him to get off the radio because we've already arrested him. Hey, that's what I think that means. Well, now I don't have enough time to finish. I was going to say a lot more about C.T. Walker. I guess I'll make this a part 1 with the hopes that I'll make a part 2.